this video with me, Wayne from swimmingcyclingrunning.com. This week we're dealing with the topic of backstroke. We haven't really dealt with that before, but I think backstroke's important not only to competitive swimmers because it's a competitive stroke, but also for triathletes because we really want to use backstroke to stretch out and aid our rotation. Certainly as a recovery stroke it's exceptionally useful. In fact, recovery stroke should only be front crawl or backstroke for a triathlete or for anyone else. Now, with backstroke, one of the hugely important things is to get that rotation. Now, that rotation enables you to catch the water at a place that's far behind your head. And we're going to see some illustrations of that on the computer that really illustrate it perfectly. But a huge problem with backstrokers, or with people doing backstroke who are either learning it from a young age or coming to it from a triathlete, is the direction they try and push the water, because generally a swimmer will go straight armed, pushing sideways, then they're pushing backwards, and then they push sideways again, straight armed. But we don't want to be straight armed. Like everything, with front crawl, we've got to grab the water. With backstroke, we have to grab the water. And you do that by pointing your hand or fingers to the side of the pool and grabbing the water, not only with your forearm, but also with the hand itself, and then driving it backwards. Let's go to the computer, have a look at that, see how it's done by some pretty good swimmers. One of the keys to any stroke, swimming well, is to maximise your stroke length. And in backstroke that's done with rotation. If you don't have rotation, you're never going to maximise your stroke length. It's true of all other strokes, but even more in backstroke. And you can see that this swimmer is entering the water with their left arm and rotating so that they catch the water really well behind their head. So that's maximising their stroke as much as possible. Another factor you'll note is after the hand goes in, when they're ready for the catch, they point their fingers to the side of the pool. Now you can see that. It's quite easy to see, in fact, that the fingers are pointed that way. They're not pointed backwards anymore. They're trying to hold the water, and that's really what you want to do. This clip also illustrates one other factor. You notice the fingers there are quite wide apart, and people say, oh, you can't go in with wide fingers. Yes, you can, because you'll notice this swimmer, instantly they want to catch, tightens up those fingers. So they are actually well positioned to hold the water. Now when you see this position, the swimmer has actually got the water held not only with the hand but also with the forearm, and you can see that tension in that arm as they bring it back. So it's initially a sweep down, a sweep up, all going backwards, and then pushing the water back and down. And you can see that pushing the water back and down, and everything is designed to get the water moving backwards beyond the body and us moving forwards through the water. Then there's a rotation to the other side, and the arm can come off the body whilst the other arm strokes. And you can see that's a loose hand coming out the water. It'll be a straight arm recovery. Now with the leg kick, it's a flick up to the surface, and that's a perfect illustration of that flick up to the surface. You're kicking up to the surface, not backwards. If you kick backwards in backstroke, you actually stop yourself in the water because you're kicking both forwards and backwards. But that flick up to the surface is almost perfect as you see that hand again drive back through the water. You want to hold the water by pointing your hands to the side of the pool. Those fingers are pointed to the side. It's held well beyond the head, and then driving upwards and backwards to maximise the length of that stroke. Here's another swimmer with a good catch and a good extension. If we run this through slow motion, you'll see point to the side, drive back, point to the side, drive back. And we've got that rotation, and the hips are very close to the surface on every single stroke. Let's just take that back a bit. I'll show you. Alright, so the hand enters, the fingers point to the side of the pool, slightly bent forward, but we're trying to grab the water, not only with the hand, but with that forearm as well. So everything is driving back and giving us as long a stroke as possible and the maximum acceleration that we can get throughout the stroke. That arm comes off the hip, and notice the hip is right at the surface, so that's a really good streamlined position. Other arm in, fingers point to the side of the water. You can see that forearm also grabbing the water. So we're holding the water there and we're holding the water with our hand. And then it's drive back and the hip rotates to get the arm off the side of the body. Now if we go slightly further back, you'll see that flick up to the surface again with those feet. So flick up to the surface, flick up to the surface. Here we have another swimmer illustrating good backstroke technique, but also he's illustrating a particular problem that we see from quite a lot of backstrokers. If you notice, as he goes along, and I'll slow that down a touch, his hips are slightly further from the water, from the surface rather, than we want to be. Now he's got a good catch, that's well back, pointing the fingers to the side, catching well behind the head and driving forward, again with the right arm. Catching the water, pointing the fingers to the side, so you can see there really well that he's catching the water with the forearm and the hand, not just one. But if you look at his back, you can see that he's arching his back slightly. So we have this position, and that, as you can easily see, is creating drag against the water with his bum there. What we really want to see, if possible, is a dead straight body so that the hips rotate up to the surface, and that's never quite going to happen with the hips that far down. You can see the hips do not hit the surface at any time, and that bum is creating drag. And that's a really good rotation, but we're slightly out of streamline because of the arching of that back. That's quite common with swimmers. We get the arch in the lower back, and we don't really want that in backstroke if we can at all help it. Okay, just wanted to show you this video swiftly, because it's of a backstroker showing or illustrating quite well the problems of swimming backstroke next to the wall. Now, if we look at this swimmer, she's got a tremendous rotation over to the left-hand side to drive that left-hand arm. Look at that catch, absolutely fantastic there. And the rotation, if we measure it, is, if we get it right, 50 degrees. Now 50 degrees of rotation is phenomenal, and that allows you to get that arm back and get the catch as far back as possible. But if we go one stroke back with the right arm, you see that rotation's truncated because she's having to miss that wall. And if we take the maximum rotation there, you'll see that it's 42 degrees. That's 8 degrees less, and I think I've actually measured that wrong. I think it's closer to 40. It's about 10 degrees less than the other side, which means we're not practicing perfect stroke on that side. And you can see that's missing the wall and pushing back, but not anywhere near as good as the other side. So if you're not practicing perfect stroke, you're not practicing the things you want to do when you race. Not good. Every single time you practice, you want it to be as if you were practicing perfect stroke. So if you're by the wall, try to move away from the wall a little bit to make sure with backstroke you at least are practicing exactly what you need to do. Okay, so hopefully that's given you an indication of the position your body should be in the water, the way you point your fingers to the side of the pool to gain access to really extend the stroke and maximize your hold on the water, and also how you should flick that foot to the surface instead of kicking just up and down. Okay, next week will be something different. In fact, the next thing I'm going to do is a fat bike ride on soft sand and illustrate how to do that. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. Anyway, enjoy this one. Hopefully it's helped you. See you next week. Keep well.